welcome to the Open Space Committee meeting. It's Wednesday. I'm reading the minutes. Sorry. It's June 1st at 4:34. So let's, first up is there anyone here for public audience? Don't see anybody here. Okay, the next item, since we have a quorum, is approval of the minutes from February 2nd, 2022.
So moved.
Okay, any second for that?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Helen's going to abstain.
I'm abstaining. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so the minutes are approved. This says welcome new members, but I don't see any new members on here.
I think I'm a new member.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm guessing it's Karen.
Oh, sorry, Karen. I saw you on the, okay, well, welcome, Karen.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I have great love for Simsbury, having lived here for 45 years, and really excited to help us preserve the wonderful work that we've done already with our open spaces. So it's my honor to join you. Thank you.
Oh, great to have you. And I'm pretty new, which is why I've only been here once, as I said before. So, okay, so next up, we would be looking for open space work group updates.
And I'm hoping Susan, I know Susan had a couple of things. Susan, do you want to start?
Sure. I hope can you hear me okay? Because sometimes my
Yes.
signal's bad.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we've been talking there's been some things percolating along the ag leases and discussions about mowing and signs about mowing, and also updating the website by removing some outdated material and adding some additional topics. So those aren't done yet, but I spoke to Tom this week, and I think he has a new intern coming who can be helpful with that. So that's the plan. And we have a few topics that we wanted to add to the website, sort of as kind of like a public information best practice toolkit, just to rattle off a couple of topics. We had Marjorie had some information on bears. We were going to put something together on lighting. We've been talking for a while about encroachment and dumping. I think there's some work we could put together on kind of like wildlife awareness in general. The pollinator pathway, we could, sort of add to that. And that relates to a couple of those different topics. That's, as I said, I don't have my computer on me, but that's my sort of short list. Marjorie, was there any stuff that you wanted to add to that?
I know that one of the topics we're going to look at is trying to identify our various meadow areas. Sorry about that. Our meadow areas, and look to doing a mowing schedule, establishing a mowing schedule for those, identifying a goal for those areas, and identifying a mowing schedule. And also, I know this is something we brought up in the Conservation Commission, is looking for some policy guidelines for the town for native plants. Since we're going the pollinator friendly route, the best plants for pollinators are the native plants. And I know on our website we're going to be putting up a link to this one. It's kind of hard to link to, but this is is it backwards? Or Connecticut Native Plants and Sustainable Landscaping Guide. It's a very nice little brochure that's put out by Yukon. I thought this would be great on our website. And we're planning on doing it on the conservation website, but we can also link it onto the open space. I think the more places we have it. And on the flip side of the native plants is the removal of the invasives. And we do have a nice little book that's also, it's just the new expanded edition, because the invasives are always new and expanding. And this is put out by the Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District. But nice little booklets, easy to use, and good illustrations, and just good suggestions for the public. And I think the plants we use have the biggest impact on our landscape. So I think if we go that way, so we'll be putting we have some suggestions from the Conservation Commission on the policy guideline. This was something that Newtown had put forward for their town. I thought might be something we need to look at for Simsbury.
So was it like a town-wide policy?
Town-wide
that
policy.
the
So
board
when
or
we-
council put forward?
Yeah, when the staff goes out to purchase plants, or when the town considers landscaping, that they look to, and it's a nice guideline. It says, 100% native trees, 100% native shrubs, 75% perennials, and annuals doesn't really matter. So it's doable, but it's a guideline, it's a policy. It's not, regulations or anything like that, but it's suggestions, and I think it would be a good thing for the town.
And you said Newtown has one?
Newtown has done this, and we're bringing we're modifying their guidelines, and we're going to bring it forward. I think in the work, going to look at it, the working group, and then bring it forward to the group, the open space.
I can ask questions. Right?
Oh yeah.
So if you do model some kind of policy like that, and Maria could also help me and answer this, would it be developed in this group, and then we would kind of agree to see if the board wanted to adopt it or could bring it to the board? Is that how that would work?
I would think so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's generally what we found to be most effective with this group is a smaller subset. The open space work group will typically work closely with staff that are also working on a lot of the same issues, and they'll work on developing drafts of particular, policy recommendations. And then when they feel like they have a pretty good working draft, they bring it back to the larger group for feedback and discussion, kind of tweaking. And then eventually, once the full committee feels comfortable with the version, we'll bring it to the Board of Selectmen as a recommended policy for adoption. So a couple of similar examples were the natural stewardship policy we did, I believe, not quite 2 years ago. Another one is the open space acquisition criteria and guidelines that we developed, and again went through the work group and then the committee, and ultimately the board adopted that. So it's kind of the process that we follow.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the refresher.
Yeah, no problem.
Can I just add a tiny piece to that? We also did the new ag lease policy, by kind of cobbling together what we felt were best practices, et cetera, from other towns. And I think of these topics we just brought up, some of them might be policies and some of them are just sort of educational material to put on the open space website. So it might be a mix of things that we would want to have put forth as policy and voted on, and other things would just be educational materials that we would be developing just to upgrade and make our website more, sort of robust on a bunch of issues.
And can you just refresh my mind again about the website? Who's working on it? Is like the work group is working on building this out?
Well, we had a meeting with Tom, and we went over things that we think that are outdated and can be kind of, archived, and, new topics that we want to add. And I hope my signal doesn't get wobbly, but he said he's looked at all that. He's ready. I actually made a PowerPoint about it, but as I said, I don't have my computer right now. And anyway, that'll save time. So we just have to rely on my brain. But he said he's all set. He's figured out how to do all that. And he has an intern starting who can start kind of swapping that stuff out.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Okay, several different kinds of questions, but it's good to read the minutes. They're 4 months old, and it was good for me to see what everybody's working on, especially the almighty subcommittee that we have. But a couple of things come to mind. You're talking about the website and updating it. How do we have feedback to know how the message is getting out and how many hits, how many, let's say, people of the public are, let's say, getting information from the website? How do we assess that issue? That's one question. It's a technical one, I know, but I think it would behoove us to understand, if we're doing all this hard work, is the message getting there? Is anybody interested in or biting to see, what it's all about? The other question I had was, Susan gave a good follow-up now as to all the activities. It was a busy minutes. In other words, you discussed so many things. One of the follow-ups I'm curious about, the no mow policy. Number one, how has the public received that? How is the staff educating them? It was mentioned that they're educating the public who might be asking, or how are they receiving the responses? How is the public feeling about that? I think these are things that would help us in what we need to do going forward, because the committee works so hard. And I just wanted to know if there's some way we can have feedback from staff, because that would be helpful. Let's see what other question I might have. That's what I was up to now. That's it. I know that there's a ranger program out there at being worked on. 4 months later, this is my response. 4 months later, where are we? All of that. And I know that's a daunting question, but I don't know how we go forward unless we know some of the feedback.
As far as the no mow, it'd be interesting to, it's too bad Tom's not here. And Orlando sometimes joins us on the work group. I know over at Simsbury Farms, there are sections that are quite visible now that have not been mowed. I think they look rather pretty. I'd be interested to hear what the public has to say. I know Tom was coming up with some signs he was going to place, but I don't know if the signs have been placed. But I think they would be in a position to tell us about the no mow experiment that we're doing.
Yeah. So I see Susan has her hand up. I think if it's intentional.
Yeah, it was. I hope my signal is okay. But I wanted to address Helen's first question about how do we kind of put this out, etc. And I can also address the Rangers question. So in terms of how we would put this out, what I'd like to do is get the website kind of, buffed up with the low.
You're kind of fading.
And then maybe, in my mind, I think pumping, we don't want encroachment. We want, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Am I okay now?
Yeah.
Right now. Yep.
Okay, good. All right. I'm not going to move. I think that, maybe we could send out, I sort of think of putting the new materials on the website is kind of a refresh or a toolkit. And maybe we could send out an email about that, when we get that organized. In terms of the Ranger program, nothing has really happened on that, but I did talk to Tom about it. And, we're it's not dead. It's just, it's just percolating along. And I still hope to get the Boy Scouts as one of the first Ranger things for Belden. So those things are, moving slowly.
When you talk to Tom, Susan, and because in the minutes he said something about there might be some issues that he would like to resolve first before you further, went further with the idea. And do you know what his concerns were?
No, I think it's just who's going to do it. What's the kind of the infrastructure that we might want to set up?
Oh.
And so that's, that's sort of, we don't want to just like announce it and not have a clue of what we're going to tell people to do and all that sort of stuff. So I think we need just some lead time to kind of get it organized.
Okay, so he didn't have any concerns at the outset before you made any headway?
Yeah, he didn't mention any when I spoke to him recently. So we can, we can check back with him about that. But I think it's just, just a bandwidth issue, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Good, thank you for that.
I didn't hear the answer to this, and I guess we kind of could just ask questions. The NOMO, were the signs ever done?
There was a prototype sign that,
Yeah,
that
I
Tom and
remember.
Orlando had worked on.
I remember the
I
design.
don't know if they've been put up. I haven't seen any at the farms.
I don't think they've been put up yet.
Do you know if they're done though? Like, because I remember we've talked about the change.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to double check to find out if they're printed. I know that they're not up yet.
Okay.
He told me they are printed,
They
by
are
the way.
printed. Okay. They just haven't been installed yet. Okay.
What was that, Susan? I didn't catch it. Did you say something? He told you something and I'm not hearing everything.
The signs are printed.
Oh, they are printed. Thank you. Okay, but they have not been installed yet, correct?
No.
Thank you.
So am I allowed to weigh in just since we're on the open space work group updates? Because I know the ARPA discussion is kind of under that, and I wanted to provide some information on that. You may not like the information that you hear, but so I think I explained at the last meeting, the funding kind of opened up, and the direction that we've been taking right now is to use that. We used it during the budget process. So I think we met before the budget. What the finance subcommittee decided to do, and thus the board, was use the funding for capital projects that were already in the budget, that came from master plans. Some were new projects, that were priorities. And it was like a new pool of funding, which ultimately benefits everyone in town. It benefits all the taxpayers because it eliminates the need for the town to use general fund, money, your tax money to pay for capital items. So I know that there's a question, Susan, about the biodiversity money, and we actually talked about that today in our finance subcommittee. And the way that I'm looking at this right now is, if there's this open space master plan, the priorities from that master plan, and I know Tom's not here, should work their way into the priorities of our capital plan. And Maria could probably weigh in too, and that then they will be in the plan, prioritized with other capital needs for next budget, and that we can use the ARPA money there to pay for it rather than use tax funds. That's kind of the position that we're taking right now. And Susan, I see your hand up. I do have one more thing to add, but I'll add it later. But that's right now, that's where that stands. So Susan, go ahead.
Okay, so that is a completely logical way to approach it, but I'm just going to say that I know that a lot of people were concerned about so I'll make this a 3-step comment.
Sure.
The initiative for doing the open space master plan was an ecological inventory, which we didn't get as part of the master plan. And I know that some people were concerned about the master plan kind of becoming like a list of stuff to do that may not all be necessary. So I just want to, so the third part of my comment is I just want to emphasize that I consider open space really fundamentally to be about ecology and health, which is our long-term lifelines for everything. And I just really want to make sure that we keep at least a foot on that, essential principle, because that's what will make our town resilient in the long term and help our kids to know that we're taking care of them in the long term, is what are our essentials. And that's why I keep on talking about clean water in our farms and our ecology and our community lifelines. And a lot of those, not all of them, but a lot of them relate to open space. Some of them relate to public transportation or public works or communication and all the things that we have in really good shape for emergency services and emergency management. So I really just want to emphasize as a general principle that I think that, one-time investments in our community lifelines is one of the most important things that we can do with the ARPA money.
Okay.
I have a question about that. May I? So Susan, just to follow up, knowing that several of the committee members individually have such a high priority for the ecological study, because it is so very important. And it was, like you say, in the master plan. And there was an awful lot of discussion at that time. This is the opportunity, because of the value of having such a study. My question is, how do we convey this to the group of people, the Board of Selectmen, whoever's making the decisions about the ARPA fund? And if the committee, the Open Space Committee, has a specific amount that is to be dedicated to matters about our forests and lands, how do we know that? When will we be, let's say, notified officially? And how can we affect our interest in how those funds that will be allocated to the committee, how do we make that known? Does the committee have to have a discussion, write a letter, send it to whom? I'm just looking for process so that we can be effective.
Yeah. So I don't have the answer to really, what I would say is we're trying to, I don't know if waiting till next year is too late. And I don't know why, I guess it wasn't brought forward as a priority. And, you could blame me, I was on the board. Why it wasn't put forward as a priority during this budget cycle, right? We did get some, things that were board priorities that we pushed forward. It didn't come up during the board, that I remember, workshops as a priority. And, that would have brought it to the attention of the full board to have included it in, as a capital item or as an ARPA spend. Next year, obviously, that working it in as a priority to I guess it would be the capital or CIP plan, would be, the way to get attention to lead up to that so that it does get funded. Between now and then, I guess you're welcome to come to public audience and ask for it. Right now, the process is we have a finance subcommittee that here, we had set things defined for ARPA use. And the plan right now is still to continue and follow that path for next year, and do it as part of the budget.
The reason why I think it's so important to bring it up right now is if the committee is working with the intent of meeting every 2 months, but then you have a 4-month hiatus, between activity happening, discussions taking place. I just want to be sure that we're not left out of the loop when it comes to those issues.
So our budget, I hate to make the year go by so fast, right? But, if this stays, at the attention level that it needs and deserves, it should get, you can raise it and try to bring it to the board's attention so that we do champion it during the budget next year and include it as a line item in one of the plans and fund it like we did certain other projects this year, along with things that were in the CIP and the capital plan. Like I said, I don't know, why it's not in there as a priority. If it's not been a priority in the past, we're trying to elevate it to a priority. So I would try to keep it afloat, I guess is what I'm saying, so that it gets there next year for sure. Right?
Thank you.
So,
yeah,
so Wendy, when would be the time that we really should be, so I'm not really sure what the process is, when it starts getting that first discussion for next year, when would be the time to really start getting our ducks in a row so that we can bring them to the finance committee or whoever to.
Maybe I think it would help if I maybe jump in just a little bit in terms of timing and sort of how we've incorporated some of these things in the past. So in terms of the items that would be considered capital in nature, those requests are due from departments to myself and our finance director, typically by the middle of January. And then we sort of work through all the various requests and prioritizing everything we receive. And then my budget is submitted to the Board of Selectmen by the end of February. So if essentially we don't have a request by that deadline in the middle of January from a department head, it's very difficult for us then to sort of fit it into the overall plan. And we're generally looking at 6-year snapshots. So I definitely think it's something, if we wanted, if the committee wanted to advocate for certain projects, it's probably, a good conversation to have with Tom Tyberski in advance of, him preparing his various departmental requests. I know we have incorporated some of the projects that emerged from the master plan that were a little bit more urgent, such as the dredging of Town Forest Pond. I know that was something that the Open Space Committee had discussed, and a couple of our pedestrian footbridges at a few of our open space parcels. Lake Basile made it onto the 6-year plan, as did the House Rest Pond Dam, which is over by the library. But there were a couple of other items. Tom, would you be able to allow me to share my screen?
Maria, I'm glad you brought up the dredging. I forgot about that one too.
The items, and again, unfortunately, it was sort of past the point during the budget development season that we were really able to incorporate some of these other ideas. But again, I definitely think it's something, conversations this fall with Tom as we're working on preparing operating and capital budget requests. But these were sort of the items that the committee had talked about, potentially could we, maybe tap into ARPA dollars for some of these projects, including, as Susan mentioned, ecological and biodiversity studies. And the dredging of Town Forest Pond, we were able to take care of with ARPA for the upcoming cycle, invasive plant species removal, development of trails for Meadowwood, et cetera. So this was the list that the committee had come up with. But again, I think probably, this fall, putting a little bit of pen to paper in terms of some dollar estimates and just getting ready for budget season would be appropriate. And typically, what a lot of the other committees and commissions often will do is they'll serve, in an advocacy role for, projects that they feel very passionate about, whether it's been the Cultural Park and Rec Commission or, Police Commission, the Library Board of Trustees. Again, they tend to be passionate about whether it's a staffing proposal or capital proposal. Typically during the budget process, they'll, come out and voice support for that. And we'll typically, share those dates of when you can participate.
That sounds great.
So if we brought these forward in the fall, if we just develop them in the fall, would we need estimates? For instance, I'm looking at the removal of invasive species. It would be good to have some sort of inventory in town, but do we put forward, would we be putting forward ideas or estimates of how much money or?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. I'm thinking maybe again at the work group level, if you guys and Orlando and Tom kind of take a look at that list and see, because Tom and Orlando might have some estimates already prepared on some of the items, or again, maybe there are some items that they, might see if you guys have a good contact or wouldn't mind reaching out to folks to get a good estimate for us. So probably, I think that would probably be a good opportunity is again, maybe if Tom and Orlando could connect with you guys about that and kind of work on putting together estimates.
Yeah, that sounds great, because that way, everybody, it just fits into the process and we get to see it with everything else. And if you guys start, you can, I don't know if we'll have another ARPA public hearing next year, but we can clue you in on coming for public audience and sharing so that more people are aware of what's going on. Mm-hmm. Susan, again. Susan, you there?
No, that was just a thumbs up. That wasn't a hand.
Oh,
it was only a thumb.
Okay, before we move to the next item, I do want to share something, and you guys might know about this, and I will send it to maybe Susan and Marjorie, but Sally Rieger from Farmington, Lower Farmington Rivers and Salmon Brook, she has given me information that there's some grant funding, and it's really too complicated for me to look at. But some of it if it's a biodiversity or invasive species, some of that falls into the qualifications. And that's another potential for you guys to tap into that. I will share it because it's, like I said, it's over my head and pay grade. So, but I'm not sure what to do with it. And I just feel like I'm going to pass it along. And I'll CC Maria too. Okay, now I'm done.
I'm sorry, I have a technical question. I have on my screen some kind of an ad. I've lost the group. Is that what everybody has?
No, you go down on the bottom of your, well, I don't know if you have a Mac, but look for the Zoom camera in blue on the bottom of your, are you on a Mac, Helen?
Yes, I am, but I don't see anything like that.
You probably just hit another, hit your escape. Sorry, technical support. If you hit your escape key, it might shrink some things and then you'll see the little Zoom icon on your bottom.
I don't know what I've done.
Well, we can see you and we can hear you if that's good enough.
Okay, maybe my next question should be, when are we going to be meeting face to face again? Ever?
Oh. Well, let's go to the last item on the agenda is a discussion on hosting educational forums or workshops.
Okay.
I'm not sure who's going to speak to that.
Yeah, I put that on the agenda. That's also been something that we've, kind of had brought up here and there at the full meeting or at the work group meeting, because we've had some in the past. And, there has been a lot of talk about, invasive species or, whatever. Like Marjorie and I wanted to have an event where we served edible invasive species as something super fun. But anyway, I think that might be, a nice, I'm not pushing for that event. I do think that would be like a zany, fun thing to do. But just as another thing that we might want to tackle is one or two events, which we had been doing before. We did like a stewardship one. We did a couple of forest forums. They were in partnership, typically the Open Space Commission and the Land Trust and maybe the watershed. So I didn't have any specific ideas that I wanted to, float right now, but just wanted to put that on the agenda in case people had ideas, especially now we have a couple of new members and we could do it at a number of different locations. So I'm just putting that out there as, something that I think would be useful. And we just kind of fell off the track with the pandemic.
Okay.
Susan, how did you intend to I'm curious if you have in your head there, the format, for instance, closed only to town and staff, or did you intend to involve like when we had the events in the past, we included all of the towns that circle us, Avon, Farmington, Canton, Granby, East Granby, Bloomfield, and we contacted, I remember talking to the mayors or managers of each town and to the land trust people of each town. And do you intend that kind of event or do you have a thought on that?
I had been thinking just, everyone was welcome, but, I'm open to the format, topic, etc. So no strong feeling. I mean, one thing related to an earlier comment when you talked about, how would we make people aware of these policies or educational documents? Maybe we could have a fun event to sort of roll that out as sort of a toolkit. And that might be something that, people would be interested in, because in talking to other people, they've been like, oh, if you put those things together for Simsbury, I'd love to, share them with my town, etc. So that might be a possible opportunity.
The only reason I brought that up is because some of these some of these subject issues that you just rattled off, have global interests, far-reaching interests, and we might be benefiting if we shared with others. They might bring us into some of their activities, and then we could benefit from theirs, so that we're not all doing the same thing in small ways, but maybe regionally doing them collectively and taking turns or something. We don't have to, invent the wheel all over again. We can just find a way that we would be interested in participating, what we're willing to do, and then decide how we'll do it.
Yeah, I agree. And just as a minor point about the materials that we're pulling together, like Marjorie showed the booklet from Newtown and the invasive booklet, we're basically just, combing through, like we did with our mission statement too, combing through materials from other towns to try and, some published, recent published research to try and pull together. So we are trying to kind of pull from other people, but we could do that more deliberately in person as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I just wanted to add something to that conversation.
Sure.
I have done over the past couple of years a number of events at Simsbury's Public Library. My topic happens to be therapy dogs, but because I'm in there a lot doing that kind of thing for kids and evening programs, I wonder if we might do perhaps even a joint presentation at the library with the pollinator pathway people and open space, talking about who we are, what we can do. So many people, I think, are beginning to get educated about the things we've spoken about, pollinators, the value of the insect population, and Doug Ptolemy's Homeland National Park. And if you'd like me to speak to Lisa at the library and some of the folks at the pollinators, we might be able to do an evening program. I've got one that I'm presenting, for instance, next week from 6:30 to 7:30. And Helen, to your point, if we had a program, we could contact the other libraries. They probably have evening educational programs for their folks, and we could move the same one around. I just think there's so much exciting things that we're learning scientifically, and because of the shrinking space that we have that's open and the value of our environment, that the more we talk to people, especially young people in the schools, the better.
Karen, I like that idea. We can also do it with the land trust. But I know some of the other land trusts, like the Bloomfield Land Trust has wonderful series, and East Grand and the Granby Land Trust have wonderful series that we should also be kind of like linking on our website. At least have, I know it's on the pollinator, they're going to be on the pollinator pathway website, but the more places we can get these out, because not everyone goes to the Granby Land Trust website to look to see what programs they're doing. But so the more we can cross pollinate, as you say, all these things, because a lot of people are doing these things. You just don't always hear about them.
Right. So I don't know exactly how things happen, and maybe it's your work group, but if anybody here wants me to reach out to the library and my connections at Simsbury Pollinators to find out how this might be possible, I think it would be totally easy to do. Let me know what next steps might be. I'm just saying, here's an idea.
I also think we might want to consider or encouraging the town to have educational programs for their staff. Certainly, we've got a lot of people that do, the open space maintenance, the identification of invasives for this town staff. They're not always, they know some, but they don't know all. I think the education also has to go to this town staff. So maybe special programs for them. Even if we have to, budget something for them.
Okay.
Are we ready for one more general question from me? Is this a time to bring that up? So I did a little research about you guys, being glad to join, and I found the 2017 or 18 inventory of open space. I don't know if that's the most current document, but it was a great start, but even itself, it noticed that, on so-and-so map, we designated this as open space, but it's actually private property. And I believe it was presented as a draft. Has that been updated?
Was it presented as a draft or as a working document, I think? So that it has to be a working, you have to constantly update it.
Yeah, it's a living document.
And so it hasn't been updated since 2017 or 18? That's the latest one? Just wondering.
We use the help of an intern. So you mentioned earlier that we have an intern coming on. What are the possibilities there?
Well, I think that is the latest one, but this was a complete full-time summer project for that intern. So I don't think that's the intention of this intern that's coming in. Maybe Maria might know more, but
he's already
if
designated, in other words.
Yeah, we don't have someone to do that. I mean, if there's things that need updating, we can try and get them updated, but there is no plan that I know of. No, there's no systematic plan in the works.
Okay, thanks. And it's not a problem. It's very helpful. I was just wondering.
But it's a good thing to bring up, Karen, because maybe get an intern for next year and target that and as a task that needs to be done.
Well, if we did that, Marjorie, one thing that would be really cool is to have more of an overview summary of it. It talks in the beginning a little bit about, what the open space is, but as a newcomer to this, if you go and read the various pages, this happens to be the page near my house. It's hard for just a resident really to understand. And if there was a page that says, and this could be my own poor research, in Simsbury, we have 3,500 acres of open space, and here's an easy map for all of them, and they pop out and come look, and, I'm just saying it's a great start, and it has potential for future use.
Yeah. And I know the town GIS system is a great resource. You can go click on the parcel and see what, it's open space or who owns it. What?
Well, for instance, each space has an ID, and it looks like it's like 8 numbers, and it gives the street. Is there any other way to more specifically identify that? That's just a question as a new reader to it. That's,
Well, certainly on the town GIS map. I mean, you can go in there and you can put in the street name and the property name, and you can get on, what is it? I don't know if it gives the whether it's an easement or it's owned outright. It does say the owner, so that might be it. But
well, thank you, Marjorie. I'll look at that.
Some of that. Yeah, it's a good source.
Thank you.
But you're right. Whether anyone else knows about it, what the public knows about it is, you might want to broadcast that a little bit more.
Okay. Okay. I think we can, if there's nothing more, I think we can wrap up and adjourn. I just want to say, Karen, I finally recognize that you're Rambler's mom. So hi. And I would just want to wish Maria's husband a happy birthday so she can go get him a cake. And if everybody's okay, can someone make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, guys. It was nice seeing you, Karen.
Thank you.
And Marjorie.
Nice to see all you.
Bye.
Bye.